2016, Module 1, Part 2. During this worksheet, we are going to be working on entering data and resizing the columns. So we're going to start out with where we left off before. I am going to close this workbook, leaving Excel open. Now I want to start a brand new blank worksheet and workbook. So I'm going to come to File and New and choose a blank workbook. Now this workbook gives us the ability to start working. You can see that I can name it. It starts out just called Book 1. I will have to name that when I save it. But there are some buttons down here that we had not addressed before. So for example, we have a zoom. So if you're having trouble viewing the size of the worksheet and you need it to be a little larger, you could click the zoom plus button and it'll zoom up 10% each time you click plus. You could click minus if you need to zoom it back down, or you can also drag the bar to wherever you want it placed. You'll notice the worksheet names default to sheet 1, and each time you add a new worksheet, it would just become sheet 1 or sheet 2 or sheet 3, because no two sheets can have the same name within that workbook. Now sometimes you might want to rename those worksheets to something a little more meaningful. So let's look at a couple of ways that we can rename those and also look at how we can add new worksheets. So for example, if I double click on sheet 1, it highlights that name and I can type in a new name. We're going to call this Customer Order with a space in between, and when you hit enter, it will change the name. Now if you decide you need more worksheets, there's a couple of ways that you can add those. So this plus button, if you hover over it, you can see that it says new sheet. When I click that, it will add a sheet at the end, or to the right of my active sheet. Another way to add is up here under the insert button. The drop down arrow, you'll notice there is an insert sheet. This one should add it to the left of the active sheet instead of to the right. You'll notice the plus added it to the right. We can also do a right click and choose insert and tell it to insert a worksheet, and it will also add to the left. It doesn't make a huge difference in most cases where it puts it because we can move it. So for example, I am going to do a right click on the sheet next to customer order, and I'm going to choose rename. I can call this one documentation. I'm going to call the next one customer contact. So I'm going to double click and type customer contact and hit enter. If I do not like where a sheet is placed, I can simply move it. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways to move things. If I want to move documentation to be the first one, I clicked on documentation, then I'm going to click a second time and hold the mouse down. You'll notice your cursor is a piece of paper, and there's a black arrow. Drag the black arrow where you want to place the worksheet and then release the mouse. Another way to move it is if you click on customer order, and we're going to do a right click, you'll see move or copy. I want to move it to the end. So you'd select that option and say OK. You'll notice also under Format, you'll find Move or Copy Sheets and also Rename Sheets. These work the same as we just used using the right-click option. So again, you can see several ways that we can rename, insert, and move worksheets to get them in the order we want them. Now we're going to look at how we can delete the ones that we no longer need. So I'm going to delete customer contact. One way I can do that is by pressing the delete key. By doing the right click and choosing delete. Another way we can do that is using the delete and then delete sheets. And we can delete this last one either way. Right click and delete. So now we are down to having 2 worksheets within our workbook. Okay, once we have that done, we're going to go ahead and save our worksheet. So if we choose either the Save button, or we can come in here and choose Save or Save As. The first time you save a file, it will automatically open up the Save As option because we have to name it something other than Book 1. Now, if you have a file that you've already renamed, for example, in our last video, we worked with a file called Finances. If we wanted to change that name, perhaps to Game Card Finances, we could then use the Save As, and what it would do is it would leave the original file, Finances, on our computer, and it would create a new one called Game Card Finances. And so we would have 2. Okay, so what we're going to do today, we're just going to hit Save. It opens up the Save As. I'm going to browse to the location where I want to put it. So I'm going to put it under my Excel 1 files in Module where we found Finances. And I'm going to change the name from Book 1 to Game Space Card. And click Save. One thing you want to be aware of is this Save As type. Right now, we're going to be saving as a workbook. We will be using other types throughout the semester, and you can see there are several options to work with. Unless you're told otherwise, you're probably going to be using this Excel workbook most of the time. You will, however, need to use the other ones throughout the semester, some of them, so you'll want to be careful with that to make sure you're getting the correct type. All right, so now that we have that saved, we're ready to start entering some data. So we're on our documentation tab is where we're going to enter. So we need documentation worksheet to be the active sheet. So you want to click on that. We are in cell A1 and you're going to type the name of the company that this is pertaining to, and it's called Game Card. So type Game Space Card. When you hit enter, Excel is going to move your active cell down one. And since I want to leave one blank cell, I'm going to hit enter a second time so that now I am in A3. I'm going to type the word author, and tab allows me to move my active cell one cell to the right. So I'm going to tab and move over to B3, at which point I will type my name. Now when I hit enter, it's not going to just move me down one row. It's going to move me down one row and to the first column that I started entering data in when I was using the tabs. If you click on the cells to move between them, then this technique will not work. But you'll see that when I hit enter, it now moves me to A4. So I can type date and enter. I'm now in A5 and I'm going to type purpose and then tab so that I am in B5, and we're going to type to record customer game orders. When we hit enter, it should take you back to A6. If you forget to tab and it doesn't work for you, it's fine. You can simply click on the cell that you want to begin typing in. This technique of allowing tab to move across the row is very helpful because when you're typing in a lot of data, it's helpful to go all the way back to the beginning of the row when you start the next record. A couple of things that you need to be aware of. We do have this undo. It will reverse the last thing you did. Sometimes it is not available, and when you hover over it, it will tell you cannot undo. So sometimes you do have to be careful because there are certain things that cannot be undone. Redo puts it back for you. So those options are available for you. All right, now let's say we wanted to change this information. Okay, so I'm going to hit undo, and I'm going to change that purpose. I want it to read to record purchases of board games from game card, and hit the enter key. Now notice this time it did only take me to B6 because I had clicked or I had gone to B5 some way other than the tab. Okay, so sometimes it takes you to a different place. Now let's say we wanted to edit that, and we decided that in addition to saying board games, we wanted to say to purchase or to record the purchases of board games and other items. But I don't want to have to retype the entire thing. So what I can do is I can click on that cell. And you see up here in the formula bar, it displays everything that we have. So if I click right where I want to make that change in the formula bar, then I can type and other items and hit enter, and it adjusts that text for me. Okay, now we're going to enter some customer data. So we're going to start out by clicking on the customer order. And we are working with Leslie Ritter's order. So in A1, we're going to type a title called Customer Order. Hit the enter key twice so that we end up in A3, and type ship to. Hit the enter key so that we are in A4. Now we are going to be typing some column headings, or excuse me, row headings. So you're going to want to hit the enter key after each one. Okay, so we're going to start out with first name, last name, address, city, state, postal code, and phone. At this point, we are not going to worry about the fact that some of these terms extend over the border of the cell. We'll fix that later, so don't worry about that right now. We're going to go up to column B, and we're going to enter Leslie Ritter's information. This information is at the bottom of page 20 in your Excel book. So her first name is Leslie, and last name is Ritter. Again, you're going to want to hit enter between each of these items because we are going down a row. 805 Mountain ST period. City is Brockton, B-R-O-C-K-T-O-N. State is MA. Our postal code is 02302. And then your phone number, and you must format it the way you want it displayed. So in an opening parenthesis, then 508, 555, 1072, and I'm going to come back and add a space after that closing parenthesis to format it a little nicer. And now you can see we have her beginning information. So if you look at the postal code, we have a slight problem. And that is because postal codes have to be 5 characters. Our postal code should read 02302. However, because Excel sees this as a number, then it is dropping the leading 0. Because when you look at numbers to the left of a decimal place, we do not include leading zeros. So we need to convert this to a text field. So click on B9, and then in the formula bar, click in front of the 2 at the very beginning of the field. We are going to type first an apostrophe. It's right next to the return key. That apostrophe tells Excel this is not a number field, this is a text field. So when I add the leading 0 after the apostrophe, it will now keep that 0. When it displays the text, it will not display the apostrophe. That apostrophe is not part of the data. It is a code instructing Excel that it is a text field and not a numeric field. Another thing you should have noticed, and I'll just do it again so that you can see it. I'm going to get rid of the apostrophe. You can see now that the number field is right aligned. It aligns at the right edge of the cell. The reason it does this is so we can line up with decimal places to do mathematical transactions with numbers. But once I convert that by putting the apostrophe in front of it and then add my leading 0 back, it now left aligns that option as well, because text fields are left aligned by default. So now that we have our postal code fixed, we're ready to start working with some other numbers that we're going to enter. So we're going to start out on our documentation tab. And we're going to enter today's date. So today is August 2nd, 2016. So I am going to type 08/02/2016 and hit enter. And now Excel recognizes that that is a date and stores it as such because it recognized that format. We'll talk about formatting numbers a little bit later in the semester. So for now, just type things in the way I do to make sure that you get them formatted the same way I do. All right, so let's go back to our customer order worksheet. and we're going to start out entering the detail of the transactions that she wanted to purchase. So let's go down to A12, and we're going to enter some column heading. So we want to hit the tab key to move over to the next column, so that when we're all done entering our column headings, we can start entering the actual rows of data. So the first field we're going to have is called a stock ID. So we'll type that in, hit the tab key, and now we want the category. Hit the tab key, and we want the manufacturer. Hit the tab key, and we want the title. There are additional pieces of information in the table that you see with all the data, which is on page 23, figure 116. We will come back and add those last three pieces of data a little bit later. So for right now, hit the enter key, and we will start entering our transactions. We will be entering the transactions that you see in figure 116 on page 23 of your Excel text. We have a stock ID of SG71, and you will want to make sure that each of these items are typed exactly the same way. When it comes to your SAM homework, if you had SG as lowercase letters, it could be marked wrong. If you have strategy game and you have misspelled game, it will be marked wrong. So typing is very important. Tab, and we're going to add that this is a strategy game. And our manufacturer is Drebeck Brothers. D-R-E-B-E-C-K Brothers. And the title is Kings and Jacks, colon. And given punctuation, we'll do 2 spaces after the colon. And then a medieval game of deception. And now I'm going to hit enter, and notice it brings me back to A14, so I can start entering the next row. So this one is going to be FG14. It is a family game by Misty Games. And the title is Twerple, T-W-I-R-P-L-E, comma, Tweedle, T-W-E-E-D-L-E, and, comma, and Twaddle, T-W-A-D-D-L-E. And again, that should take you back to column 1. We have 3 more lines to add. So we have PG05, Party Game. This is by Parlor Vision. And it's Trivia Connection. Then SU38, Supplies. Now, when I type a P, it says, oh, you had a P, And last time, the P started parlor vision. Is that what you mean? If you get the same option to pop up, and it's correct, if you just hit tab, then you only had to type that one letter. So this can be a significant time savings, and it is called Autocomplete. This is a box of dice, and in parentheses we want 10. And then we have S, G. Now notice it tried to fill in SG71 for us because it saw that before, but it's not right. So we're just going to type 29 and finish it off correctly. However, when we start out and we type ST for strategy game, it says, oh, you already did that. Is that what you mean? And you can just say yes by tabbing. And this again is by our Draybeck brothers. So when we type a D, it fills that in for us. And then we have the game of Solar Warfare. And it's obvious to see that we have some issues with the way our columns are lining up because you cannot read the data. However, we will fix that later, so don't be concerned with it right now. What we're going to do right now is go over to E12, and we're going to set up our last three columns. We have first players and tab, then price and tab, and then QTY for quantity, and hit enter. So notice it doesn't take us all the way to A13. It takes us where we started. So it took us to E13. So we're going to say that there are 4 players. And since the next thing we want to enter is dollar amounts, we're going to put some formatting on there. Now we'll learn later in class how to avoid having to type the formatting, but for now we're going to type it in. So we're going to type in a $, and then 39.95, and we want 2 of them. And since this is a quantity and not a dollar amount, we just type the number. We want 6 players for this game, and it is $24.55. So we're going to type in a $, 24.55, and we want 1. Trivia Connection has 8 players, and it's $29.12. So $, 29.12, and we want 1. Now for dice, there is not a number of players, so we're going to leave that blank, and we're going to put in $9.95. We want 3 of those. And then finally we have 2 players at $35.15, and we want 1. So now we have all of our orders entered. Since we've done quite a lot of work since we saved our file, it would be a good idea for us to go ahead and save that file again. You want to periodically save your work because remember, your work is being done in memory or RAM, which is volatile. If the computer were to be turned off, you potentially could lose some of that work and have to redo it. So always make sure you come up here and click Save. Now because we have already named it, when we click Save, it does not bring up that Save As dialog box. It just saves it with the same name, so it updates the file that is already there. It does not create a new one. So let's look at how we can fix some of these borders. Okay, we're going to change the column width, and I'm going to show you several ways. The first way is I'm going to change column A to 15, a width of 15. So if you hover over the right border at the edge of column A, you'll notice your cursor becomes a straight line with arrows going in each direction. When you hold the mouse down, it tells you the width, which is currently 8.43. I am going to drag that out till it becomes 15.00 and release the mouse. That is your drag and drop way, and that is one way to change your column width. You can do the drag and drop with multiple columns at the same time. So for example, if I wanted to do columns B and C, I could highlight both of them, grab one of the right columns or borders, and drag it out to 18. Sometimes the drag and drop can be a little picky because you need to get the exact number. Another thing to remember is the drag and drop approach is affected by your screen resolution. So it may not be the best idea to use that on our SAM projects where you have to work with a grader. If your screen resolution is different than the recommended screen resolution, it may say 18 on your computer, but maybe 18.05 on the grader computer, and so it would be marked wrong. Another thing that we can do is use the format command or button. So we're going to select column D. Now in order to select an entire column, you're going to come up and click on the letter itself. You'll notice you get a big thick arrow pointing down. When you click, it selects the entire column. Now there's a couple ways we could get to this format option. If you right click, notice you get an option there that says column width. That's one way of getting there. Another way is under this format button, the drop down arrow, you will see column width. Same dialog box opens up. This would be the way that I would recommend column changes if they give you a specific number in your SAM homework, because this is not going to be affected by screen resolution. When I type in 25, it's going to be 25. Another way of setting the column width is called an auto-fit. Auto-fit is the only way that it actually looks at the data in the cell and makes it as large as is needed for the largest piece of data. So what you're going to do is you're going to hover over that right column, or excuse me, that right border, and do a double click. And you'll see that it makes that as large as is needed for that text in the field. I'm going to go ahead and undo that and put it back to the 25. Okay, so it is important to remember that auto fit, or that double click, is the only one that actually looks at the data in the cells. Every other one, you visually are setting the number or the size. Okay, now with D, you can see that it's still cutting off the data. So what we want to do now is we want to have the text wrap onto a second line if it doesn't fit. So I am going to highlight the cells D13 through 17, and I'm going to come up here into my alignment group on the ribbon. It's my home tab, and I'm going to click the wrap text button, and you'll notice that it wrapped those names that were too big to fit. It automatically changed the row height if it needed to fit that data. All of the techniques that I used to change the column width could also be used to change the row height. So for example, on row 13, I'm going to hover over the bottom border, and I'm going to drag it up to 30. You also have the double click option for an auto fit. You also get the row height option here on your quick menu. You also get the row height up here under the format button. And of course, the drag and drop is going to be affected by screen resolution. So let's go ahead and save this. At this point, we're going to stop this video, and the next video will pick up with entering formulas and functions.